Of all the dumb changes that Marvel Comics have made in Spider-Man lore, probably the Spider-Totems is amongst the worst. Maybe it's not as bad as One More Day, but they're going to be expanding it out, Aaron. I know this is what everybody wanted to see. An expansion of an originally stupid idea.
I'm so just disappointed in in comics at this point. It's really kind of depressing. It's like, this is the best that you have. That's all they can do is go back to the well and make take ideas that already exist and just make them so much worse. It was a bad idea from the start. It was one of the things that dropped me out of JMS's run on the title, was the stupid Spider-Totems.
Yeah.
What a dumb thing to go back to.
Marvel's preview pages for Web of Spider-Verse #1, New Blood, include a page from the story The Web Heart by Matt Groom and Luciano Vecchio, which introduces readers to the Web Heart as a living force at the core of Spider-Man's web of life and destiny. This revelation establishes the web as more than just interconnected destinies, but rather a living creature. The Web Heart is an active, breathing element that governs the delicate balance of the multiverse, ensuring its stability. This powerful force holds the multiverse together and grants the Spider-Totems their power. And I feel borderline fucking retarded after having read that, Aaron.
You read that, and I was like, halfway through it, I was like, I have completely lost interest in this. Where is the element that connects you to this? Like, there's the thing about comic books, the thing about comic book characters, the thing about stories is there has to be an element of humanity that connects you to the characters so that you give a shit. Nothing that you just described makes me care about reading the story.
Well, no, I don't understand why there needs to be an underlying, natural or predestined architecture of why Peter Parker became Spider-Man. Why couldn't we just have him be bitten by a radioactive spider? And it just so happens it turned out to be a really good person, and it worked out for everybody in the end, and he turned out to be a hero. That's a pretty cool story.
It is a pretty cool story, and it's what's kept Spider-Man compelling for all these decades. It's why people continue to gravitate to them. But the more that you muddy the water, the less interesting the character becomes. The more spider people you have, the less interesting he becomes. The more you try to say that this is all part of a grand scheme, a grand plan of a web of destiny, that's not interesting. Conceptually, you might go, okay, that's an interesting sci-fi concept, but does it work in Spider-Man? And the answer is no.
I'm not sure that it works for superheroes, period, because it takes the agency, if you will, from the character that I have great power and I'm going to use it in a certain way to help people because he's just predestined to be this. Like he never could have been anything else.
Is there just this yearning to do away with free will in characters because there's a certain segment of the populace that would love to just give up their free will and just be told what to do, just be controlled? Is this like a subconscious thing that's coming out in comic books? Because it seems ridiculous to me. I think that one of the things that made comic book characters appealing, one of the things that makes stories appealing is characters' agency, their individuality, their, pushing for their own goals in the face of whatever challenges are ahead of them. I think that that's what makes compelling stories. I don't think this predetermination of everything is interesting. I think that just makes all the characters chess pieces that get moved around by some cosmic force, and I don't care.
Yeah, even like a character like Batman, you think about Batman with what happened to him, Bruce Wayne in Crime Alley. As a young child, seeing his mother and father murdered right in front of him, there's a lot of bad paths that he could have gone. He could have become the Joker himself. He could have become something more like Punisher. But he was able to internalize all that grief and everything and able to manifest it as a symbol of justice for the people of Gotham. And that's pretty cool. But once you remove that part out of it, and it's not just a happenstance random thing that happened to an ordinary person, and then he chose his path because this is what he decided to do in honor of his parents, and you start adding these extra elements, they've done that to Batman too, it does take away the interesting nature of the character and the character exploration. I don't think any of these additions where you go back and you add all these elements from 1,000 years or 1,000,000 years before they ever showed up, ever served the character in a long time. You recently got the 1,000,000 BC Avengers. You're like, oh, so there's always been a Ghost Rider on a woolly mammoth. For Thor, it was Odin. Why are these characters unique? Why would I need to buy into this character? Because now I know that there's 50 million other versions of them throughout time.
Yeah, and it's always going to be repeated. It's always going to be that way. I mean, you can do stuff like that in comic books. Comic books are a place where, you can do like these crazy big concepts, but you don't necessarily need to make it part of your continuity, part of the mainline continuity. You could have done a what if with the BC Avengers and just been like, in this other timeline, this is what happened. This is how the Avengers were, in this other multiverse, and that's fine. But like to be like, no, there was a Ghost Rider and there was a Black Panther and there was, it's exhausting. Who cares?
Well, the good news is the Web Heart will not be alone. New Blood #1 also introduces a powerful counterforce to the Web Heart, which appears to be some form of a symbiote. The Web Heart and its chosen champions are locked in a constant cosmic struggle against the champions of this opposing force. This new threat reveals that the ongoing battle between Spider-Man and Venom is not limited to Peter Parker's universe, but part of a larger multiversal war between two opposing forces. And right there, you're like stripping everything really cool about the Peter Parker Venom thing, where he shows up back from Secret Wars. He's got this alien symbiote. He doesn't realize it's actually another life force. He basically rejects it. It ends up on Eddie Brock. And then it's like completely obsessed with killing Spider-Man because it was rejected, like a vengeful lover or whatever thing. And that makes everything very, very personal. And that's a really good adversary. But now that we know that really there's the Web Heart and some type of symbiote god that apparently isn't Null, that are actually grabbing champions that represent the web of life and destiny and, I don't know, the symbiote of life and destiny to battle in eternity. Like, why do we care about anything happening on Earth there? It doesn't matter.
I'm immediately not invested in everything that, every character that you are tying into this. Because it's kind of like, just to boil it down to a smaller story, because they're like obviously going, oh, the web of life and the Web Heart. The Web Heart, by the way, is like the gayest thing I've ever heard. Just to boil it down to a smaller story. When you did Daredevil Shadowland and he took over the Hand and he, set up Shadowland, and then they revealed that it wasn't Matt Murdock that was doing it, but he was possessed by the Beast, I lost interest because it was no longer Daredevil. There was no longer any stakes. It was just like, this might have well been another character that you brought in. And the fact that he's in Matt Murdock's body is not interesting because it's somebody else controlling the character that I actually care about. So this is the same thing, just on a more cosmic scale. It's the web of destiny and the web of life and the Web Heart and the web spleen and the web pancreas. And they're all continually at war and choosing their champions. That's boring.
Well, it's just a continuation of taking what is a great idea introduced by Gardner Fox at DC Comics with Flash, where you introduce the multiverse and the concept that there's other versions of these heroes and other universes all occurring at the same time. Great, you got multiverses, and it's a wonderful trope or an element to go and visit different versions where there's different kind of versions of the characters and things operate differently, and do something a little bit new. It was never supposed to be all brought together so you have an entire universe of Spider-Man or an entire universe full of Venom or an entire universe full of Logans or an entire universe full of Batman. And you take what should just be a pretty fun story trope so you can do some things different and change things up every once in a while. You remove all the magic and make it fucking retarded.
Yeah. Yeah, it used to be that, hey, in this little arc of Excalibur, Excalibur from another dimension comes over, and it's a dimension where, where Nazi Germany conquered Europe. And so Captain Britain is, like Captain Germany and Nightcrawler is there, and they're all serving this Nazi regime. Yeah, it's like, yeah, and you can get a fun story out of that. But when your like whole entire universe is like, it doesn't matter. Why am I invested in the 616 when you've established that there's a million slight variations to really wild variations out there that could come in at any time? It just makes me not care anymore. I'm not invested in this because it's not unique. It's not interesting. Knowing that Peter Parker, there's a bajillion different Spider people out there, it lessens Peter Parker. It lessens your marquee character. Congratulations.
Yeah, how many Peter Parker variants can you get in one universe? Obviously, you've got Peter Parker, but now you've got Spider-Woman, Spider-Girl, Spider-Boy, Silk, Miles Morales. You still got Spider-Gwen. Like, how many different versions of Spider-Man can you have operating in one universe? Like, there's a reason that he's the marquee, and it's not because it doesn't matter who you call Spider-Man. It's cool. It's because he was an awesome, unique character that really drew people in, and you can just see the disinterest in Peter Parker Spider-Man, especially in the Prime universe, the 616, I guess, in Marvel's case, and it's just waning over time because there's nothing interesting about him anymore. They stripped it all away.
Yeah, they stripped it all away. They give pieces of it to other characters. The other characters have to sap off of his rogues gallery because nobody at Marvel is talented enough to create any new villains for, a new villains rogues gallery for a new character, even if it is a knockoff of Spider-Man. There's just no talent there at Marvel anymore, and that's why we're getting these regurgitated storylines that they think are big ideas, but are just tired retreads of the ideas of better creators. That's why we get this now. What's the point? Why is anybody reading this anymore? I understand. I had a conversation earlier today. And we were talking about how there's just people that just buy the comic because they've always bought the comic and they just put it in the plastic bag and they don't even read it. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. You're supporting
like a loveless
garbage.
marriage where you're going through the motions.
Yeah, you're just going through the motions. I understand that you've always done it, but you don't need to keep buying Spider-Man, especially if you're not reading it. I'm going to tell you, if you're not reading a comic book, you shouldn't be buying it. It's great for sales, and I'm not turning any money away, but I'm just saying, like, for you, if you're not actually reading the book, what's the point of buying it?
And how about the media actually being honest for once? They know this is a stupid idea. They know this isn't a game changer. They know this doesn't add anything of substance or interest to actual readers, but this is the way that Screen Rant describes this. The Web Heart's newfound prominence marks a pivotal moment in Spider-Man lore. It is a powerful entity, a source of heroes' powers, and a keeper of fate. It is the cosmic recruitment center for their multiversal battle across the cosmos and a fresh, intriguing addition to Spider-Man's lore.
It's not pivotal because in a year, no one will be talking about it.
No one will be talking about it when it comes out because it's written by Matt Groom. Why are we letting no-name writers create things that are supposed to be, connecting the Spider-Man history and lore across multiverses? Nobody knows who this guy is because he can't write.
I've never heard of him. I just assumed he was somebody new. It's weird that you can just walk in with no track record of success and be handed a storyline and that is going to alter the status quo. Everything you know is wrong. It used to be that if you were going to do something like that, if you're going to do some big shakeup, you entrusted a creator with a proven track record. Like, when John Byrne comes on West Coast Avengers, he's going to shake things up, but he's got a proven track record of reinvigorating, interest in titles with new ideas. I've never heard of this guy. Why does he get to come in and shake up the very foundation of Spider-Man? And again, it won't, because it won't matter. It won't be pivotal. It won't be pivotal.
George Bush moment. I love it.
I know. It's like strategery, the strategy of plan and strategy. It's not going to work. It's not going to be interesting. You're right. People aren't going to be talking about it the month that it comes out. If anything, people will be talking about how terrible and skippable it is. And now you've tied Spider-Man to all that trash. And in 3 years, someone else will get the bright idea of, hey, remember that Web of Life thing? Let's revisit that. And then Screen Rant will be out there with another article talking about how pivotal and world-changing it is. And it's really going to matter. It's not going to matter. It don't matter. None of this matters.
Well, especially because within the last, 24 months, we've had the death of Spider-Verse, we've had the death of Venomverse story arcs. And now we've got the Spider-Verse and the Venomverse fighting each other because literally they never even deliver on what they promise these days.
No, it's just a name. Death of Spider-Verse. I wish the Spider-Verse had never been invented.
Exactly.
I wish Dan Slott had never read Crisis on Infinite Darkwings and decided to do it in Spider-Man. I bear some responsibility. Sorry, everybody.
Well, I'm probably going to have to make a video about that, Aaron.
Yep.
The real issue behind comic books is your big fucking fat face on the thumbnail.
Wow, that was hurtful.
Well, you're the one that was influencing Dan Slott to create stuff that's still ruining comic books to this day. And he's been off of Spider-Man for 5 years.
Yeah, but he's going to Superman, so get ready for that.
If you like the full conversation going on here, because the Geek Fix podcast is about 2.5 hours. So we've got well over 2 hours left in us, including an entire look at the toy fair currently going on at New York. Lots of toy news coming out this week. You do need to go to Think Critical Patreon. There's a link in the video description. The Geek Fix on Sparrow's Never Ending Christmas Tree tier. Hope to see you there very, very soon.